Hi, I'm Celine and I'm the founder of We Think. I'm super excited to be here with you today for our first episode of We Talk. The idea behind We Talk is to talk about topics around wellness, environment, and sustainability, which are the core of We Think services. And let's be honest, like there are topics that are very trendy right now, but really messy. Like a lot of things are said and written around these topics. So we hope that with We Talk, you can get a little bit more clarity. Today, we are a very special guest. She's an amazing lady. She's an inspiration. She's the founder of ESPA that she started from scratch and turned into like a multi-million company. Um, Her name is Susan Harmsworth, and she is like the wellness queen. Like she's an institution in the wellness industry, and I'm super happy to have her. Let's welcome Sue. Hi, Sue. It's really great to be with you today for this interview. You know, I'm a big fan of yours. You're like my wellness mentor, and you're such an inspiring and wonderful woman. So I'm super pleased to have you with me today. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure, Celine. The feeling's mutual. I've watched your career over the last few years, so I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. So we're here to talk about wellness, something you know really well, and you dedicated your whole life to it. And today we talk about wellness a lot these days, and the word is used like all over the place. So can we start by defining, like, how do you define wellness?
Well, in the first place, I'm going to start that I don't like the word wellness, and I'll tell you why. And I've been fought by it by the industry, so in a way, I gave up. I prefer the word well-being. Mm-hmm. Wellness to me, interestingly, just first before I tell you what I really think it means, was a word that's been used in Europe for years and years and years. So it's not new. What's worrying me at the moment, it's being used for everything. And I think for the consumer, it's going to be very confusing. But I think if you take the real meaning of wellness, to me, it means living harmoniously and as healthily as possible in mind, body, spirit, and also for the planet. And I think now more than ever, we're going to talk about prevention. And some people, when I've talked about prevention previously, don't really understand what I mean. So they've misinterpreted what I mean. So prevention to me is preventing being ill. So in the past, when I talk about medical and things like that, people take it in the traditional meaning of allopathic medicine. And I don't mean that. I mean that really being the best that we can at each stage of our life. Because life is an evolving journey, and we change mentally, physically, and spiritually, and we also change our attitude. So I'm very big on staying well, staying as healthy as possible at every stage of your life, and preventing illness as much as we can.
Right. Yeah, especially these days, we have a lot of more information on what that means and all the different elements that you can either integrate into your life or that you can work on to really have this preventive approach. Like when you think about food and sleep and movement and spirituality, these are all elements that you can integrate and that are part of creating this well-being, or like well-living life.
Yes, and as you know, I've been talking a lot about definition of terms and definition of words, and I think one of your questions to me was about light wellness.
Yeah.
And it was me who defined that for the Global Wellness Institute, that I think that we're going to have to start to think about light wellness and then much more serious wellness. And I think we need to start to define those terms. What is beauty? What is wellness? What is well-being? What is happiness? What is medical? What is integrative? what is complementary, and all of those things. And we need to define them for the consumer, because otherwise the messages in hospitality and wellness destinations that we send out are going to be really confusing. So I suppose for me, staying healthy. So if we look at the population generally that come to our resorts or who come to destination wellness or integrative wellness, a lot of them have contraindications already, huge numbers. And it's something the hospitality industry hasn't recognized. But if light wellness to me is something you do to maintain your health, something that makes you happy, something you can have fun with friends, something you can do on your own. But it's things like, let's say, it's things that don't need any diagnostics, that are for the majority of the people if they're on vacation or in their everyday life. It's things that you build into your routines. And it's things that you can live with. Because the other thing is, we need to have realistic goals, I think. I think sometimes we set ourselves totally unrealistic goals, and that doesn't really get us anywhere. So light wellness to me is things like yoga, holistic spa treatments, going to a spa socially for fun with your girlfriends or your family or your partner or whatever it is. Nutrition in a general sense. So nutrition, understanding quality of food, provenance of food, eating healthily, not obsessively, and all of those sorts of things that, if you like, it's an extension of what we do in the spa now. So, you know, you can take a spa fairly seriously, or you can go and have fun on a day spa, or you can go on a 7-day yoga retreat. There's a lot of options, but to do those things, that's maintaining your health at every stage of your life. Can you hear that noise? Sorry.
No, I can't hear it. Don't worry.
So tell me if you can. Tell me if it's interfering, because then we can stop and start or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, light wellness for me is much more about prevention. It's much more about maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and being the best you can at every stage of your life. When you move on to integrative wellness, and medical, integrative wellness to me does mean bringing together the medical aspects, the complementary health aspects, and the general spa as we know it today, fitness, sport, all those things. But you probably would go to an integrative health resort a little bit more seriously, or maybe when you have an issue. And it's hard for hospitality people to understand that. I've had problems describing that. So a million years ago, I used to run a health resort, as you probably know, with doctors and nurses and Pilates and yoga and all those things before anyone had ever heard of them. And everybody came for a minimum of 7 days. Now, it's the same now. We're almost going full circle. There were a lot of people who used to come on the 7-day program who maybe had been bereaved, or they'd had cancer, or they were getting divorced, but it was a lifestyle change. Something had happened, either they'd been sick or they had a lifestyle issue. And that was why they would come, because they wanted to make lifestyle change. And I think that's going to be the same now for integrative wellness. But at the same time, we have this growing population of people who really understand wellness and want wellness now. They want to be healthy, they understand nutrition, but they want to learn more, and they will build that into their lives. And if you just take me as an example, I've been going to health resorts of one kind or another, some very spiritual, some very clinical, but I've been going since my late 20s. And that's been an evolution for me personally. It's been an evolution for me in keeping healthy and being as healthy as I can, mentally and physically. It's also been a learning process about myself, because I've done some quite in-depth retreats. I've done silent retreats, for instance. So I think you need different things at different times of your life, and it might be the same person. So for instance, I've been away with my son to quite a serious medical, to Shah actually in Spain we went, which is fun. We had fun because we were together and we don't often get that quality time. But equally, it's quite a serious program. And he's 54 and he wanted to do like a midlife check, if you like. So I went with him and that was great. Normally, I'd go on my own to somewhere like that was fairly strict, because I think sometimes, as we all know from the pandemic now, you need time to reassess your life. And to do that is quite serious, especially if you're going to do it mentally and physically. And then there's other times when you're really not well, or there's something you need to address. And for instance, I like to do my medical checks at these places rather than going into a hospital environment. So I'm a great believer in functional medicine testing. And I think, so if you say to me, what's the difference between light wellness and more serious integrative wellness? I think once you get to the more serious side, then you need your doctors and your practitioners. You need your diagnostics, not in the way we talk about in allopathic medicine, but you need diagnostics of maybe doing some scanning, of doing your functional medicine tests, which is a different way of measuring intolerances, hormones, all those sorts of things. And I think people also want results. There's time in your life where you want to be still and you just want to do the more spiritual stuff and your breath work and all of that stuff. But there's times in your life when you really want to get results. You want to say, okay, I've gained 5 kilos, or I'm so stressed I can't think straight. I'm not focused. I'm not productive. Whatever it is, and each individual is going to have different needs, which is a challenge, by the way, for the industry. And then you will go and do a much more serious results-driven program. But I do think the diagnostics and the results-driven programs are going to be much needed, especially after the pandemic, and especially with all these lifestyle issues that we're all identifying. So type 2 diabetes, 1 in 2 people predicted to have cancer born after 1970, heart disease, horrendous, sleep deprivation affecting our health. And a lot of this coming back, obviously, to food. And as you rightly have identified a lot, sustainability of our water, our air, and our soil in particular. And I think one of the reasons we're feeling these effects so strongly now, apart from the pandemic, but if I was being philosophical, I'd say the pandemic has a reason, and is a much higher reason, is because we've neglected those things for so long. Mm-hmm. So if I think about my lifetime, we didn't have supermarkets when we were kids. So, you went to the farm for milk and butter, and you went to the greengrocer for your vegetables, and you probably grew half of it because it wasn't available. So over that period of time, of my lifetime, we've destroyed our soil by over-farming. We've been importing things, traveling halfway around the world when we didn't need to, and so on and so forth. So I think the time now, I think awareness is much greater. I think people recognize the need to make change. I hope they do. I hope we come out of this with much more change.
Yeah, I hope so too. And it's funny what you said about like how things change. Like I recently saw something about like a wellness retreat that is doing like forest therapy or like nature therapy. And I was like, this is a walk in the forest. Like this is what I used to do with my family on Sundays, for example. And it's very interesting to see that these things that were like kind of normal are now like becoming, like we're becoming so out of touch with ourselves and out of touch with nature that you need to put them as like a therapy to really like take conscience that, yeah, actually this is something that you need and that is really helpful in your, for your health and your overall well-being.
I totally agree. And I mean, it worries me because a lot of it to me is common sense. And I think the challenge now is going to be for the children. And as you may or may not know, I have 6 grandchildren, and teaching them, you know, the mental health issue is going to be enormous after the pandemic. But what worries me is the numbers that they're giving us on children. You know, something like 4 out of 10 are suffering severe anxiety and mental health. And I think trying to bring our children up to be resilient and to be independent and self-sufficient, because I have a philosophy which is maybe not popular, but I think we've overprotected a generation or 2 of children. And we've not taught them to think, we've not taught them to rationalize, we've not taught them to make their own decisions, we've not taught them to be strong, and we've taught them, you know, this whole thing about dependence on the nanny state drives me crazy. But I mean, that makes me sound old, but you know, my sons, luckily, and their wives who I'm blessed with, feel the same way. So, but it is a fine line. But I think teaching them about food and cooking and foraging and all of these things, my lot will do it naturally. And so back to the common sense. But then they're privileged, aren't they? And I think we've got to think about all these people living in cities who've never seen a forest, or they've never swum in an ocean, or they've never swum in a lake, or being exposed to those things. And I think city living, especially in poverty or you know, where there's not opportunity, we have to be careful about making general statements.
Yeah, especially when the current food system, probably not gonna go to that direction, but is very is not helping. Like it's cheaper to buy like a chocolate bar than to buy an apple, and that's where you see that there's an issue, and the overall food system needs to be addressed, because if you are a family with low income, you're gonna tend to go to buy food that has the that is cheaper, and then it's like a vicious circle, and then it's not good for your health, and it's not good for the children and all that stuff that comes from there.
So I think, I don't know about the whole world, but I know in England the pandemic has made a big difference to people's shopping habits. And people have shopped much more local, and they've shopped in local farms and local markets and things like that. And I'm really hoping that's going to carry on. One of the things about integrative resorts is the microbiome, and we have so much information now on the gut health, on the microbiome and gut health, but as we also have a lot of information on the brain, Alzheimer's, early dementia with the microbiome, also on the skin. And I think that over the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot of change because of that data that's coming through. And then if we go back to integrative wellness and integrative resorts, I think those are the interesting things that can be measured and can really help you improve your quality of life, your health generally. And I think the reason integrative wellness, I think, will succeed, and these integrative wellness resorts that in a way combine light and serious, so you can choose in a way which route to go. And to get that right, you've got to get the design right. But I think they will have a future because I think they're looking at people in a different way and at lifestyles in a different way. So even if you go on holiday and you want to have fun, or you go with your girlfriends, and say you go to an integrative resort and you don't want to do the serious 7-day program, at least you still have the nutritionists, the biophilic gardens, the great quality food. You've got the opportunity to do yoga and classes, treatments, holistic treatments, whatever it is. And I think because they'll take a different view than traditional hospitality, I definitely think there will be a growth area going forward.
Yeah, and I already seen some, like we've been contacted by some hospitals who want to do some preventive medicine and really go into this integrative wellness space to like be able to offer a solution to their patients before they become sick. So I think this change of mindset also like in the medical industry is going to really like push and like help like move forward that shift in mentalities.
I already see that. If I look at my career, which is about 50 years, when I started, they thought of me as a white witch. I've fought that battle all through my career for integrative health, for taking medical and complementary together. And it may well be, who knows, the hospitality industry is going to drive it from one direction, but maybe the medical profession equally will drive it from another direction. I mean, talking to the director of the Cleveland Clinic and the Mayo Clinic in the States and all those sorts of places, they're definitely looking at the complementary side before, during, and after treatment. And I think and also public health is not going to be able to afford to maintain all this sickness, and people getting sick so early in their lives, and then people living as long as they do without having a quality of life. Those are the things that we majorly need to change. And I think the public health system will start to see the benefits. And we're also getting the evidence now. So a lot of the things we're talking about, like nutrition, like massage, there wasn't the evidence there before, and now there is. So even with cancer, I set up the SATCC, which is the Standards Authority for Touching Cancer Care, to make sure that there was a source for the consumer and the therapist to get trained properly to deal with cancer, and the consumer to find therapists and spas who could provide them with treatments. Now, years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do that. People were there wasn't the evidence there to show the benefits. Now, nobody's making medical claims for all of those things, but it makes people feel better. And, to go to a spa with your friends, or to go to spa and have massage, or to have somebody come to your home, or whatever it is, people are saying how much better they feel, how it helps with pain, it helps with sleep, and all of those sorts of things. And then if you look at neuroscience, and you look at the whole mental side of things, and the positive effect it can have on recovery, all these things are being proven, whereas they weren't before. And I think that's also going to play a big part going forward on the type of resorts that we design, or the ability for people to get treatments of various kinds to help them through various scenarios. Mental health being a huge one, and massage and things like that, and anxiety. And my worry, if we talk hospitality, my worry is the hotels and resorts start to talk about wellness, and they haven't got the staff or the training or the qualifications to deliver what they're talking about. So even if you take sleep as a subject, or cognitive health as a subject, where does anxiety tip into something more serious? Now, hospitality can't deal with that. So that's what I mean by light wellness. If you're going to do it, do things that people understand, do things that can be deliverable, and do things that people get benefit from. Don't try and go too far into the more serious things where you can do harm. If you do the wrong thing, or if you, you don't recognize contraindications, then you're not giving the consumer the right tools. You can actually do more harm than good. And so that's really what I want to avoid, is that people start to really recognize the difference between maintaining your health, feeling happy, feeling relaxed, having a holiday, than erring over into more serious issues that could have a secondary effect. When you've got doctors, then you've got that element of safety, if you like.
Yeah. Do you think that there's like a base required to be called or to be allowed, let's say, to use the word wellness? Like, is having a spa sufficient to call yourself a wellness retreat, or is providing yoga classes enough? Like, what's your view on that?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the word wellness has been overused. And somebody asked me a question the other day, somebody actually, so I won't say who, is spa now defunct? Has spa moved on? And I think the spa industry has really reacted really well to the pandemic. And I think they've really changed and been innovative and all those things. And I think that the trouble with the word spa is, again, so we had the same challenge for 15 years with the word spa, was defining it, which is the same as we're going to have now with wellness, is defining it. I think that in a way, a lot of the wellness issues we're talking about were already there in spa.
Yeah.
So if you had really good, holistic, well-trained therapists, they were working with energy, they were working with contraindications, they were working with all sorts of things. And they were working holistically in the true sense of the word, the mind, the body, and the spirit, and when I had ESPA, we were doing some really holistic, advanced work. Now, in fairness, only about 15% of the therapists could cope with that. So this is the problem we have for the industry going forward, is where are these people going to come from? Because, there's one thing training spa therapists to, in a progressive way, to make them more and more advanced, but then you have to retain them to do that. But when it comes to osteopaths, naturopaths, nutritionists, complementary practitioners, neuroscientists, that's a whole other ballgame. So I think that is going to be the challenge. I think we can all talk about defining the industry and defining terminology and marketing and all of those things. But I think the challenge is going to be finding the people with that skill set and the advanced skill set. Now they're out there, definitely, and hopefully what I'm looking at in the UK is I'm working with a group of people on trying to progress the training qualifications so that spa therapists can do modules that add to their experience. So they could do nutrition, and they could do sleep therapy, and they could do advanced massage, for instance, and do it in a modular form once they've got all their basics in place. And that's always been, as I say, even when I had the company, we did a lot of advanced training, and we did a lot of progressive training, postgraduate training. And I do think that is going to be the way forward. It's the only way you're going to deliver what the consumer needs. And I think what the consumer needs is ahead of what the market can provide. So that's going to be a big challenge.
Do you think that technology can help? Like, we talk a lot about like well tech, and I've seen like a machine that does the same as Reiki frequencies, but without doing like a Reiki treatment. So there's so many things out there. Do you think that this can help?
So I think, again, we have to divide it out into sections. So one of the reasons everybody's looking at touchless machines and touchless therapies, yes, the pandemic's brought that to the front, but equally it's labor cost, it's not having the skill sets. However, historically, so it's going to be interesting to watch. People have always wanted touch, and the power of touch is well proven. But then you're independent on you're dependent on a pair of hands and a personality in an individual to be trained to the level we've just been talking about. However, I do think aesthetics is going to change. So I think the skin clinics, with the aesthetics, with the lasers, with all their technology, I think that's a huge industry. It's here already, but I think it's going to get bigger because it's run predominantly by nurse. You know, you can get nurses trained to use it, and you can get advanced therapists to use it. So I think if you put aesthetics, skin clinic aesthetics in a box, I think that has a huge future. I think the touchless therapies have a place, but I don't think they'll ever replace touch. And I think if you do them in a combined environment, so if you go back to the old-fashioned thalassotherapy centers, the clinics in Europe and all those places, they always did have things that were independent of the therapist. So I think they've got a place, but I don't think they'll replace. Back to technology, interesting about it. So that's treatment technology that we just talked about a little bit. I think technology can be, I'm a bit worried about mental health and breath work and sleep with technology because it's kind of counterintuitive. However, I think for monitoring, technology is going to be very interesting. AI, I think the whole AI, being able to do scanning and send it to a central point, being able to monitor if you've been diagnosed in a certain way or you're trying to monitor programs and things like that. I think pre-arrival and post is going to be interesting with technology. Form filling gets a bit tedious, doesn't it? But I think, you know, if you're going to an integrative wellness resort and you're wanting to make changes in your life, then extensive medical histories and things like that are going to be necessary. And I think technology has its place, and I do think it, but I think that when you're trying to make change and you're going through the process of, say, a 7 or 14-day intensive program, I think it drives you nuts. So I'll give you an example. I did a 14-day program at quite a clinical resort that shall remain nameless. And everything was on your phone. So your whole program was on your phone, which you'd think would be great, but actually it was quite a busy program. So I really wanted to leave my phone. I wanted to be tech-free. And I wanted to leave my phone in my room. And I couldn't because my program, I was constantly checking my phone. So that was a negative. That was definitely a negative because I was trying to do some spiritual work as well as some physical work. And to do that, I think you need stillness. You need stillness. And having to look at the phone all the time to see where I was supposed to be next was a real distraction and actually was a negative. So I think it's going to evolve as well, isn't it? It's I think we'll find these things out, and then that's a generational thing as well. You know, my grandkids all through, you know, they're addicted. That's another addiction, isn't it? So they're saying that they're designing hairdressers where kids can be on their stuff all the time, because they're so addicted that if you take it away from them, they get antsy. So yeah, that's I think managing technology is another thing we've got to teach everyone. Technology is here to stay and we can't be without it. We have to manage it rather than it manage us.
Yeah, definitely. I saw when we spent a month in Costa Rica with my daughter, there were a lot of places where there was no internet, and I could see the benefits of being phone free for even a few hours or a few days to her and her mental health, and the way she was acting and interacting with me as well. And it was really great to have this forced internet detox. So much value in that.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be times where everything's going to crash. And I mean, I live in a very bad area, as you know, and it's always crashing around there. I'm in the middle of nowhere and the internet crashes all the time. Now I'm fine with it because I can remember all my telephone numbers because I'm that generation. But the kids go bonkers because they can't contact anybody. They really get antsy about it. And I think it's going to be interesting because I think there's still going to be areas of the world where we won't be able to get internet access, or it's going to be so overloaded, it's going to crash there at various times, especially in third world countries.
Yeah.
We'll see. That is to be seen in the future.
Last question, because I already overrun from what I told you, but it's so interesting. So what is your favorite wellness or treatment? What's your favorite?
Oh, Celine, that's not fair. That's not fair. Well, you know what? I practice most of what I preach. But I'm not boring. I hope.
You're definitely not.
So I've meditated, I'm 76. I had my first child at 21, which is a whole generational difference. And I had natural childbirth. So I've meditated since then. So to me, meditation is part of my life. It's not something I have to think about. If I get anxious, which is rare now, but that's a life well lived. I've arrived at that point. I can easily control that now with breath work and with other things. So I find it very difficult to answer that question, because if you say therapy as in a treatment of some sort, and I will be killed for saying this, other than my retreats that I do, which I try and do several a year, so different types. I'll always do a medical retreat. So, an integrative wellness retreat of some sort. I'll always do that. And then I'm really focused and I really, take alcohol away, coffee away, all those things, and also look at myself objectively, and I'll do all of that. So I do that once, and then I'll probably do a spiritual retreat once a year as well. But other than that, I don't want to go to spas and hotels anymore because it's been so much of my life. So it's, to me, staying in a 5-star hotel, wonderful as it is, I can't relax because I'm constantly looking and, oh, what's he doing, or what's she doing, or whatever it is. So to be in my villa or to be in my home and have somebody come to me is my ultimate treat, really. And so that's what I do. So in my home in England, I have a salt pool and I have a hot pool and I have a gym, which is a yoga gym, and I have a treatment room and a sauna. And to be there and not have to travel and to have somebody come to me is just the best thing in the world. And then here in Tenerife, where I have my villa, same thing, I hardly go anywhere. I'll go to the local restaurants because I love going there, but I don't think I'm ever going to travel again like I did before. And I think that's going to apply to a lot of people. I'll travel because I have to, but I'll do as little as possible.
Yeah, good. And I will remember to bring my swimming costume next time I'm coming to your place.
You don't need a swimming costume.
Well, thank you so much, Sue. It was a great pleasure. I love talking with you anyway, so it's always nice, and it was super interesting. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Celine. You enjoy life, and I'll hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Bye.